So I was on the internet and I saw a video with like a clickbaity title, and I just clicked on it. The title was "Krystal Ball and Other Anti-Woke Populists Enable the Far Right." And when I saw the title of the video, I was hoping it was like being sarcastic, and it was about that Nathan Roberts article. It's kind of like this smeary article. The Hill did a video on it. Secular Talk also did a video on it criticizing the article. But it's not actually about that article at all. It's about a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, where Krystal Ball and Saagar Enjeti from The Hill just are being interviewed by Joe Rogan, and this guy that made the video, Vaush, is like watching it and like giving his like 2 cents into it. And the funny thing is, this Joe Rogan clip is a video that I like. Like, I watched the video and I was like, oh, Krystal and Saagar, they're making pretty good points. I like this. I even like posted it on my Facebook. But it's so ridiculous that the way that Vaush, the way that he like criticizes it, like the way that he talks about it, like he makes all these straw man arguments, and it's ridiculous. And I just thought that I would also make a video about his video about that video and give him this kind of the same treatment of like critiquing him, not straw manning him, just like my own like little critiques, my own little like 2 cents of what he's saying. But before we get into this, I am going to give a disclaimer. And that's, I don't know Vaush. Not that I only not know Vaush personally, because I don't know him personally, but I also don't know about him. I have never seen a video by this guy, and he might be like semi-YouTube famous or something, and I've just been out of the loop and just happen to never heard of him, but this is like the first and the only video by Vaush that I have ever seen. His other content may be great, and this is just like one bad video, or maybe all his videos are like this. I don't know. Again, I don't normally watch his videos. Okay, he might normally make completely different videos. Like, he mostly just streams playing video games like Fortnite or something, and then he rarely talks about politics, that he just got into it one night on the stream. Again, I don't know. I don't watch his video. But here we go.
I have a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience. Why are corporations really supporting the George Floyd protests? What an excellent question to illuminate some people's perspectives on certain issues.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Mm-hmm. That is what.
Here's our man.
What I like. Why conservatives have to care more about government. That's something I like. One of my pet causes is, look, like, we are living in a society where the culture is against you. Like, we are living in a society where, the cultural elite, the commanding heights of American culture, and you're living in a society where you don't have real power there. And you're all...
The cultural elite, the commanding power in American structure. Now, when I say that, I'm usually pretty specific about who I mean. Who does he mean?
Also living in a society where you have corporate America. Look at these protests right now. Amazon supports the protests, right? Like, Amazon supports the protests. Citibank's CEO. It's the people with the most accumulated capital in America are also on the side of this protest. Why? Because in my view, they use identity politics and racial politics. They want to split the country along those lines. Every single day that we're talking about identity politics and having debates about race, we're not talking about.
Really want to.
So yeah. This is literally the triple parentheses argument right here. They want to split us up by race and gender and what have you. They want race war. They want everything because it keeps us from talking about class. So, again, I ask you, okay? Really think about this, okay? Really think about it, okay? Right now, popular support for BLM is pretty high. What do you think would be more likely to sow racial division? Amazon supporting BLM or openly opposing it? Really think about what would lead to more cultural conflict in the United States. If the corporations in this country really wanted to propagate a race war to prevent class consciousness, passively supporting BLM by changing their logo and updating their website probably isn't. These are the multi-billion-dollar conspirators that are trying to prevent the socialist uprising, right? I feel like their investment might go a little bit beyond that. I feel like they might. Here's what Amazon could do. What if Amazon said that they believed in the great values of America, one of which is respect for the police, and that they will no longer be delivering supplies to any groups associated with BLM? There would be fucking riots. And what would they lose from that? How much money would they lose from that, really? Of the billions and billions of dollars that they make, how much exactly would they lose? Probably not that much. A small price to pay for sowing racial division across America. My argument here, functionally, is that this idea that they're doing it to promote race warfare is A, dumb, because if they wanted that, they would be taking different actions, and B, presupposes the idea that BLM is bad for racial unity in the United States of America, when, at least according to the polling, people are more united than ever before on the subject of black oppression in this country. It is doing the opposite of dividing people by race. What this man right here is saying when he means dividing people by race, what he actually means is speaking openly about racial issues. And to him, not a dearth of racial conflict is merely people being quiet about their oppression. What's that quote? Positive justice is worse than a negative peace?
So Vaush kind of misses the point that Saagar is trying to make here. And he's basically saying, can identity politics distract from issues that involve the establishment elite? Yes, they can. Because while some people can kind of have like, well, I have some identity politic opinions here, but I also care about the other issues involving the establishment elite, some people don't. They just get obsessed with some sort of identity politics thing. They just get obsessed with that, and that's all they see, and they become sort of blindsided to stuff involving the establishment elite, right? And it's funny because Vaush kind of proves Saagar's point in a way by being someone that's obsessed with identity politics but really doesn't know anything that has to do with the establishment elite. You know? He really doesn't know that much about that. So it is kind of funny that he sort of proves Saagar's point in an effort to disprove Saagar.
Split the country along the lines? I think they just want support for their company.
Vaush, I thought you've argued capitalists split workers amongst things like race and stuff. Corporations don't deliberately do that anymore because corporations used to profit from that. Now they don't. Joe Rogan is actually about to say the only technically correct thing Joe Rogan has ever said in his entire life, okay?
The only technically correct thing Joe Rogan has ever said. Obviously, that's not true at all, but I'll let this one slide, Vaush. I'll let it slide. I'll just write it up to hyperbole. I'll just let you're just goofing. You know, that was just a goof from Vaush, a Vaush goof.
This summarizes why corporations do what they do. Watch for it.
But
We're not
do you
talking
think
about
they really
the
want to split the country along the lines? I think they just want support for their company. And they think that it's a good PR move.
It's a good.
Nicely done, Joe Rogan. You've demonstrated a superior political and economic understanding to either of the dipshits you are talking to right now. Corporations will do what makes them money. They're not part of some crazy oligarchical mega conspiracy to secretly destroy the culture of the West to prevent socialism. They're not that smart. Nobody is. They just work on their own bottom line.
And that is where you're wrong. And that is where populists and you fundamentally disagree. So when it comes to the fact that there is an oligarchy. You know, like when you vote for your representative, it's supposed to be a democracy. You vote for them, they get into office, they represent your interests. They represent the people that voted for them. No, they don't. or all too often in this country, they don't. They instead represent the interests of the people putting money in their pocket. And those people that are buying power from these representatives are considered by some an oligarchy. I mean, call them what you want. The establishment, the elites, the powers that be. Call it what you want. Socialism for the rich, crony capitalism, but it's all different labels for the same thing that these populists can agree on. Like myself, like Saagar, like Krystal. And that's where you fundamentally disagree. Why you just don't understand these populists. What are they talking about? What do they mean? Well, now we know. You think it's just, well, there's no oligarchy. Oh, there's no conspiracy. What? Of course there is. I mean, look at the way that the representatives vote. Do they vote for what the general population wants? Or do they vote for the interests of banks and corporations? Looks like they're more concerned about the banks and the corporations than they are about regular, everyday, average people, the working class, the poor. And even if you are looking for some more specific evidence, I guess, look at the way Bernie Sanders was treated by the DNC during the 2016 election. Bernie Sanders, one of the few populist politicians where he's clearly not bought and paid for. He clearly represents the interest of the people. And yet, look what happened to him.
And right now, because people are supportive of BLM, they support BLM. It's that simple. Corporations will not go out of their way to support a social issue unless they think that it will make them money to do so. That's it. It's that simple.
Exactly, it's a brand new move. And here's the thing is,
there's Krystal Ball.
This goes back to the coalitions of the parties, right? So the Democratic Party caters largely to these like white affluent women, basically, is like the base that they mostly right. I know the space well. I'm closely affiliated with the space.
That's not entirely untrue.
I want to see Joe Biden do
the Joga base.
I'll pay
right?
for that.
And so, for people who are more or less doing well, as things are, right? They've got their health insurance. They've got a job where they're treated like a human being with humanity. They can get their Uber Eats. They can get whatever they want on demand, right? Their way of virtue signaling is on identity issues.
Virtue signaling. Now, we need to be really careful with our language, especially language like virtue signaling, when Joe Rogan has such a mixed audience. Now, if I were to say something like, Amazon is virtue signaling by supporting BLM, I think most of you understand what I'm saying by that. When I say virtue signaling, I'm saying it's an empty social gesture that doesn't, belie actual values on their part. But what Krystal Ball is saying right here is a little bit more ambiguous. And this is the reason why conservatives will so often accuse corporations of virtue signaling anytime they do anything even remotely progressive. Their argument isn't just that the corporation is being insincere. Their argument is that the corporation is being insincere and therefore the cause is bogus. I have never heard a conservative say, oh, they're just virtue signaling, they should be more sincere.
Krystal makes a point similar to the one that Saagar made earlier, and similarly, it goes over Vaush's head because it's about him. It's about these people that just latch on to identity politics and ignore other important things going on in politics, particularly things with the establishment and elites and things going on with that. And he just latches on to this bit about virtue signaling. She says virtue signaling. And somebody in Joe Rogan's audience might see that as it's delegitimizing Black Lives Matter, or it's delegitimizing worrying about racism. And again, he's not even really listening to other things she's saying. He's just latching on to anything that has to do with identity politics. Thus, again, kind of proving her point.
And if you only confine the conversation on policing to, like, let's deal with this, let's have more body cameras, like, if you keep it in that lane, that's very comfortable for them, right? If you have a broader conversation about a society that, you know, has decimated unions, has decimated working class power, about who has power in the society and why.
Look at that slimy comparison right there. Hey, what's super non-divisive and super easy in the democratic stuff, in the democratic conversation?
Right. If you have a broader conversation about a society that lane, let's deal with this, let's have more body cameras. Like, if you keep it policing to, like, let's deal with this, let's have more body.
Yeah, policing, body cameras, those are the easy conversations that the Democratic Party wants you to have.
Working class power, conversation about a society that, you know, has decimated unions, has decimated working class power, about who has power in the society and why. Like, that's more of a threat to them. So,
but you're really challenging the Democratic Party when you do this. My dude, for one, the difficulty of a conversation does not mean how important that conversation is. And the reason why the latter is more difficult than the former is because the former you were specific and the latter you were vague. The former you said police reform and body cams. That's an easy conversation. Well, yeah, sure, because you just outlined what the conversation was. With the latter one, it was, who has power in our... So yeah, of course that conversation is more difficult. But if you want to have a specific, like, argument over which types of policies are difficult to have, I think you'll find a lot of what BLM is pushing for here is not exactly comfortable to any political party in this country. Yeah, defund the police, the super well-accepted, Democratic Party approved position, except even Bernie Sanders said it was too radical for him.
Vaush misses the point yet again. Body cams are an easy conversation to have. And the reason they're an easy conversation to have is because they don't affect the establishment elite. The establishment doesn't care if police have to wear body cams or not. That doesn't affect them. They're willing to have that conversation. And the stuff that Krystal was talking about earlier, about money and power and where does it go, that's a hard conversation to have when the establishment elite, when it's about the establishment elite, but also when they own the mainstream media and both political parties. Kind of a hard conversation to have. But you're not thinking about that. You're just like, it's like, because I know what she's talking about, and Joe knows what she's talking about, because we're in that populist vibe. We're like, you know, I've heard this conversation before. I've had this conversation before. But you're kind of like new to it. It's like you're walking in the middle of a movie and you don't know what's going on, so you just kind of like start making assumptions or something. But let me go to a more specific populist issue. And maybe you can kind of understand what I mean, or what she means. Let me think. Take the prison industrial complex and the war on drugs. Okay? Look at it. Prisons owned by private corporations. They own politicians. They put money in their pockets. They change laws or make laws because they want to influence politics, because they want more people to be in prisons. That's how they make their money. And even the prisons, the way they're regulated, the way they're put together, are put so in a way that people in prisons aren't being rehabilitated. A lot of people go to prison and they come out worse, and they're more likely to go back in than someone that's never even been. They're more likely to go back, and that's wrong. And it shouldn't be that way, and it's not that way in other countries. But it's that way here, because that's the way prisons are made by design, to get people to to relapse. They're not designed to rehabilitate people. And it's just a horror show. It's just horrific. And does the mainstream media talk about that? Or are they up in arms about it? No. Are any of the political parties, do they talk about it? Are they up in arms about it? No. And you talk about identity politics, think of it this way. The shittiness of the prison systems, you know, it affects everyone negatively, but different people to different extents. And it adversely affects poor people a lot more than rich people. And it also adversely affects the black community more than white people. I mean, look at the statistics. Look at how big of a percent of African Americans are in prisons, and they're designed to keep people coming back. I mean, think about that. If you want to talk about systemic oppression, there you go. There's a good example of it. One that we know about. One that the populists want to do something about. One that people don't have a conversation enough. But they'll put Black Lives Matter on their, you know, the corporations. They'll put Black Lives Matter on their Instagram or whatever, Twitter, because they're not having that kind of conversation. They're not talking about the elites. They're talking about police and police brutality and stuff like that, which, by the way, I'm not delegitimizing Black Lives Matter. I'm not trying to say that racism or police brutality is okay by saying that, you know, Black Lives Matter is an easy conversation and isn't about the elites. That's all I'm saying. It's an easy conversation, one, and two, because it's easy because it's not about the elites. I'm not saying that police brutality is okay. I'm not saying that racism is cool. No, absolutely not. And that's not what Saagar or Krystal are trying to say either. They're just saying, hey, there's a reason that Amazon is cool with Black Lives Matter. Because it doesn't have anything to do with them. You know, it doesn't have anything to do with the shittiness that the people on top, the super wealthy, are doing, or the establishments, or the elites. And people just, like you, just latch on to identity politics that have nothing to do with that because it's easy. And you ignore other things. And I'm not saying that you can't have both. You can't be upset about the industrial prison complex or, you know, the oligarchy that you don't believe in that enables that. That created that. That oligarchy that you think is just a conspiracy. You know? I'm not saying that you can't be worried about that and also be worried about instances of racism or instances of police brutality. And no one else is. No other populist is like, oh yeah, racism just fucking, we just need to be real racist to just, police brutality is great, but, you know, I'm worried about corporations. You know, nobody's saying that. In fact, it feels like you're kind of projecting sometimes, because you're so one lane with identity politics that you project your one laneness onto other people. Oh, they're not talking about identity politics? Well, they must not care about it, unless they're talking about it all the time. If they ever talk about corporations or problems with money in politics, that they just don't care about identity politics. Like I do. I know. That's what it feels like sometimes, Vaush. That you kind of project your tunnel vision, is what I should say. Tunnel vision onto other people. And not everybody's tunnel vision. Okay?
So yes, for corporate brands, it's very comfortable to have, like, let's have a diversity initiative. It's less comfortable to say, no, let's actually value the worth of everyone. Let's actually have a different set of power. Let's actually not have corporations able to give unlimited money and buy off our politicians and then be able to go work on your boards, et cetera, et cetera. Like,
notice how every easy, superficial, virtue signaling thing she talks about has something to do with race. And every difficult, serious, substantial issue she brings up has to do with class. The way she is subtly delegitimizing the severity of race or gender-based issues in this country.
She's not delegitimizing anything. Okay? You're just building a straw man argument. And when someone virtue signals, they generally use race issues, gender issues, LGBT issues, those sorts of issues when they virtue signal. You don't really hear a lot of virtue signaling that is class-based. And that's kind of what she's talking about.
That's a very non-threatening conversation. That's how you end up with, was it Bank of America who sponsored the movement continues?
Yes, like a Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. The movement continues with D. Ray McKesson, who's a prominent activist.
To be cynical, is there another reason why Amazon would support this protest? That this is kind of the death of retail. I mean, this is one of the final nails in the coffin of retail. When you think about...
And Joe Rogan's back to saying dumb shit. The fucking protests have nothing to do with the success of retail. What the fuck does that mean? Oh, wait. I'm sorry. I take it back. He might be referring to COVID. I thought he was referring to the protests, like, because people are, like, smashing shop windows, it's the death of retail or something. But no, okay, sorry. If he's talking about COVID-19, then it's much more than that is a blow against traditional retail.
Investing your money in a brick and mortar store with a glass window. After all this horse shit?
Wait, never mind. I'm sorry, Joe. I was being real charitable there. Never mind. All right, sorry. I tried to be charitable. Okay, never mind. He actually thinks that retail is going down because windows are shatterable. All right, never mind. Okay. We're back in the correct timeline. The one where the shit he says is really dumb.
To be fair, it is kind of a silly thing for Joe to say, oh, who's going to want to invest in retail because of these riots? And these riots kind of come from like a perfect storm of the situation. Hopefully, by 2021, things will be different and things will be better. You know, COVID will be gone and things will start to get back to relatively normal. And things like that won't be an issue. Or at least not a big danger that brick and mortar stores are worried about. But as silly as what he said is, it's still not as dumb as some of the things that Vaush has said in this video. Nothing that Joe Rogan has said in his entire career is as dumb as some of the things that Vaush has said in this particular video. And yet he just wants to be like, everyone's dumb but me. That's one of the funny things that I find about Vaush. Like, he's not... from this video, I'm not seeing him as a very smart person. But yet, in this video, he will call other people stupid. And it's just kind of ironic. And it just kind of gives me a chuckle. Like, he's dumb and doesn't know it. You know.
Look, I won't cite who told me this, was a very prominent person in the field of economics, and was like, my conspiracy theory is that Jeff Bezos wants 10 to 15% unemployment, because then what's the best job in the world, Joe? In a rural place? Amazon warehouse.
He's the guy dropping off those bricks.
What? Why would you need 10 to 15% unemployment to invest in building Amazon warehouses in communities with low... What the fuck does that mean? 10 to 15% unemployment, that's like 60 million people unemployed. What? His broader point is true, though? No. The implication that Jeff Bezos is funding the protests? No.
I think the point that Saagar is trying to make is that if unemployment is really, really high, people are more likely to settle for really shitty jobs, like working at an Amazon warehouse.
Who's better at delivering shit than Amazon?
Right. There you go. There you go.
Amazon Prime delivering pallets of bricks.
You should be more cynical.
See, like, yeah. No, I mean that capitalism needs an unemployed underclass. Yeah, 3 to 5%, not of 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% unemployment would be devastating for our economy, and it is presently. 3 to 5% unemployment is frictional unemployment, which is, economically valid.
Cynical, because look, how else do we get to a point where like the Shell Gas Company sponsors a 1619 Project event with Nicole Hannah-Jones?
I don't know what that is.
So the 1619 Project, oh man, this is a real rabbit hole. So this is the New York Times put out this thing. The 1619 Project is the year that the first slaves were brought to America, and it was about reforming the way that we talk about race and slavery in America. And so the very first essay which she wrote, which is very controversial, is when she claimed that the reason for the American Revolution was because people wanted to keep their slaves, not because...
Is this what that PragerU video was about? When did this Joe Rogan thing go live? It went live on June 3rd, and the PragerU video came out a few weeks afterwards. So is this where... Okay, so I just want it to be made clear. I have never in my life before heard the argument that the American Revolution had anything to do with keeping slaves. But then I made that comment on stream, and some historians actually messaged me and sent me data on how, yes, that was part of the reason. Because even though the British Empire had not outlawed slavery until 1819, I think, the British Empire was imposing stricter legislation on the treatment of and the transportation of slaves, and there was a political machination in the works for slavery to be abolished, and they saw the writing on the wall. And one of the reasons why they wanted to break off is because many of the landed gentry in the 13 colonies recognized that if they were still part of the British Empire, when that happened, their slaves would also be yeeted away from them. Yeah. So that's actually now I don't know if that's historical consensus, but from what I've looked at, it's a fairly compelling argument. And it makes sense, too. For example, one of the reasons that the founding fathers also led their little revolution was because we know this, there were tax benefits for them. No taxation without representation. Well, people like Washington had representation. They were extremely wealthy and prominent aristocrats from the, from England before coming over to the New World. So there was a tax benefit for them to secede as well. Now, none of these are the single reasons why. The American Revolution probably has like a million reasons why it actually happened, but I think there's an argument to be made. In 1772, English courts ruled that slaves on British soil were freed, if I recall correctly. Is that true? 1772. Free. Yep. Mansfield ruled in 1772 that no master ever was allowed here in England to take a slave by force to be sold abroad because he deserted from his service. Yeah, that was right around the time of the Revolutionary War, so it's possible they saw the writing on the wall, you know? Anyway, it's a complicated historical issue. I'm just saying there is some legitimacy to that argument. I'm not a historian, and I haven't looked at enough data for me to concretely decide, you know?
Alright, I'll give credit where credit is due. And I will say that Vaush is being uncharacteristically reasonable at this point in the video. And again, I don't normally watch his videos. I have never seen any other video by him. He might be reasonable most of the time. And in this video, he's just really unreasonable most of the time in this particular video. And that just happens to be the one that I've seen. But he's being pretty reasonable and saying, hey, the American Revolution had a bunch of different reasons why it happened. And probably the main reason was had something to do with taxes. Okay, it was about taxes. But maybe there was this pro-slavery sentiment that was an aspect of it. Maybe because I do know at that time there were anti-slavery people. There were people that were against slavery, and it was a political issue at the time. There was anti-slavery talk going around, even though slavery was legal in the United States, when it first started. and in the British Empire. That doesn't mean there weren't people who were against it, and maybe they were afraid that anti-slavery sentiment was going to gain traction, and maybe that's part of the reason that some people were pro-American Revolution. Could be. Definitely could be. Definitely could be. Okay? And Vaush is being reasonable about the way he articulates this point. But, again, that's uncharacteristic for Vaush in this video.
Because of, control from England and all that. What happened is that a bunch of very prominent historians on the American Revolution, the Civil War, and much more panned the essay. They said this thing needs to be corrected. They corrected it. Even then, she still won the Pulitzer Prize for journalism, or for commentary, I want to say, for that specific essay, which was there. And they partnered, I think, was with the Pulitzer.
Wait, what's the point so far? A person wrote an essay and got a Pulitzer? Where does this get populist?
Pulitzer Center in order to create curriculum that schools are now using to teach. Now, this was attacked, the 1619 Project, not at first by conservatives. Of course, conservatives were pissed off. It was attacked by the World Socialist website, by Trotskyites, by Marxists and socialists. And the reason why is because they saw it for what I see it, which is that it's a cynical attempt in order to say America is an irredeemably racist nation.
What? What the? Okay, listen, I can't speak to the brainworms or whatever Marxists or Trotskyists or whatever said this. First of all, I should note that this person is a co-host to Krystal Ball, a very prominent progressive political pundit, unironically making the argument that we should erase American history or not consider it because it makes us look bad with regards to racial treatment.
Now, Vaush is back to being completely unreasonable, and he's making a straw man argument, putting words into Saagar's mouth that aren't there, when Saagar is just trying to point out, hey, there's this thing called the 1619 Project. By the way, I haven't researched and I don't know anything about it. But sounds like just Saagar is just saying, hey, there's this paper that wasn't very historically accurate, but won a prize and became curriculum for schools, not because of how historically accurate it was, but because it pandered to identity politics, and that should raise up some eyebrows. What could that mean?
And he's throwing this cover like, actually, it wasn't the conservatives, it was the Trotskyists who made this criticism. The argument that America's revolution might have in part been inspired by a desire to keep slaves has nothing to do with America being irredeemably racist. Nothing is irredeemably anything. Every country has had a racist past. I mean, find me one that hasn't, but that doesn't mean we can't, push it forward. This is the most cynical attempt to rope lefties into thinking they should agree with conservatives that we should erase history. This is literally just like people like Ben Shapiro making the argument well, when they teach about slavery in the history books, they're not really teaching you about history, they're teaching you how to hate your country. It is the same argument. It's insane to me.
That is the only single and most pressing problem that we have in our society. And
nobody has made that claim, and I guarantee you the essay did not make that claim. That is the only... If somebody can find me the 1619 Project and find me a line from it where it says that racism is the only issue in America, I would be fucking delighted.
You hold that frame, then you don't ask questions about corporate power.
Nobody holds that frame.
Now I'm going to address what Saagar is actually saying, and not what Vaush is saying that Saagar is saying, because Vaush is just making a bunch of straw man arguments. He's just straw manning the shit out of Saagar some more. But Saagar is talking about a particular frame of mind where someone is so wrapped up in identity politics and past oppression and past slavery that they don't question modern problems, modern oppression, They don't question the current establishment elite. They don't question certain politicians that they should be. And Vaush is saying that nobody holds that frame of mind. Nobody holds that frame of mind. Well, I don't know, do they? Does someone hold that frame of mind? If Saagar were to say, for example, he were to point out maybe how the establishment elite crap on people, oppress people, do bad things to people, especially things that may affect black people in America more. Huh? Someone who holds that frame would just be like, slavery, in response. If someone holds that frame, Vaush, do you hold that frame? Let's find out.
Again, this is the lie of the Nazbol. The idea that racial solidarity and class solidarity are mutually exclusive. You can't simultaneously believe in socialism while also believing that America is a racist country that needs to be addressed in that sense.
In America, you don't ask questions even of leaders. A friend of our show, Zed Gilani, had a fantastic appearance on our show. I really encourage everybody to go watch it, where he talks about, if you look at the black community in America, which is what had the most pressing impact on their life economically and destroyed so much of their livelihood, it was the foreclosures under Barack Obama, and it was the wipeout of black home ownership and black wealth.
It was fucking slavery.
And there you go. Vaush holds the frame. He's caught red-handed holding the frame. And he's completely oblivious to it. The amount of cognitive dissonance here is just astounding. He's just so oblivious to it. And from here, he's gonna backpedal. He's gonna backpedal and draw and connect the dots between slavery, since he's already shouted out slavery like a good pre-programmed Manchurian candidate. Because he has to hold the frame. He's now going to connect the dots between slavery and, Jim Crow and segregation to the foreclosures that Saagar is talking about, as if that has something to do with what Saagar's talking about. As if Saagar is saying that connection isn't there. But that's not what Saagar is arguing. That's not what Saagar's trying to say. Your straw man arguments don't work when I can see and hear Saagar in your videos, and I can hear what he's saying and compare it to what you're saying that he's saying, and see that those two things don't match up. And you're basically just putting words into his mouth so you can, I guess, win an argument against him, even though he's not even fucking there. You're just watching a video? Like, what is this? This is crazy.
What? Oh yeah. That's truly the heart of the black condition in America. The heart of their exploitation truly was Obama-era foreclosures. 100%. It was absolutely the 2007 financial crisis. 100%. That's truly... If you dig that, back in 2006, black people were doing hunky-dory, okay? Obama runs around, foreclosures following the financial crisis. Damn, racism happened again. What the fuck are you talking about? The only reason those foreclosures disproportionately affected black people was because of generational poverty following from slavery and the Jim Crow laws. The only reason those foreclosures were racially prejudiced was because they were building on economic prejudice that came from slavery. Or was slavery just a class issue, perhaps?
That the 1619 Project and the framework of politics, that original sin, which of course is the
original sin. This is literally a PragerU talking point. Krystal Ball is supposed to be a fucking progressive. This is literally a PragerU talking point. The regressive left believes that every white man carries with him an original sin. You were born privileged, you were born white, and this is nothing you're ever going to be able to apologize for. This is I've heard this from the lowest IQ conservative arguments, and this is being used to justify right-wing economic populism. And Krystal Ball, the progressive, is just sitting there letting this happen. This is her co-host.
The original.
I've never heard of anyone referring to PragerU as populism until now. And I'm pretty sure that Vaush is referring to PragerU as populism because he doesn't understand what populism is at all. Now, I can't really comment a whole lot on PragerU and their content because I haven't really seen any of their videos. And the reason I haven't seen any of their videos, because from what it looks like to me, it's just a bunch of right-wing propaganda. And it doesn't have anything to do with populism. The only video that I've seen from PragerU was that YouTube poop remix. You know the one, the viral one. The one that it's like, what happens when you throw a baby underwater? The baby fucking dies. That's the extent of everything that I've seen from PragerU. Now, let me talk about populism for a second. It's important to note that the left and the right are two ends of one political spectrum. And there can be other political spectrums separate from that. Like people know about the authoritarian libertarian one, right? And populism exists outside of the left-right axis. It's its own thing outside of it. And it's not mutually exclusive with being left-wing or right-wing. Saagar considers himself a right-wing populist. He's right-wing and he's populist. And those are just two different political stance that he holds. And Krystal is a left-wing populist. Two different stance. And the reason they agree a lot on stuff is because they're both populist. It's not like left-wing populism and right-wing populism are two like completely different things. No, they're just both populism. Plus, Saagar believes in some right-wing stuff, and Krystal believes in some left-wing stuff, but on the populist stuff, they agree on. For the most part. And then maybe they have ideological differences outside of that.
Is the be-all, end-all for why we are where we are today, absolves current political leaders.
Nobody has ever said that.
And recent political leaders, like Barack Obama himself, or like leaders in the city of Atlanta, or leaders in the city of Baltimore. And
oh, yeah. Black Lives Matter types are huge fans of Obama and the city leadership in Baltimore and Atlanta. Oh, yeah. Racial progressives in this country, if there's any group of people they're fans of, it's the leadership in Baltimore. He's just imagining, like, these people. He's just imagining a group of people who are so blinded by false race politics that they will ignore any class analysis. But this is being done by people, like this fucking guy, who will ignore any race politics to the benefit of his class politics. Except by way of being a conservative, I guarantee you that this guy is not actually a socialist.
And that it absolves public policy which is non-racial. And so when I say that, why does Shell Gas Company feel comfortable sponsoring an event in which the main message is that America is an irredeemably...
Nobody said irredeemable. Find me the 1619 thing right now. Chat, right now. Bring it up. I'm not joking. Where is it? 1619 Project? Give me a link. The New York Times link is not working for me. Full issue? Here we go. New York Times Magazine. Here we go. The whole goddamn thing. Is this... yes, the text. Does it work? Yes, it works. Okay, let's see if we can find the word irredeemable. Oh! They didn't say that? That's just a stupid fucking straw man narrative you're projecting?
Ooh. Oh, that's funny. Vaush accusing Saagar of using a straw man argument, since Vaush has been leaning so hard on straw man arguments. this entire video. It's just so ironic that he would ever accuse anyone else of making a straw man argument. Now, is Saagar making a straw man argument? Is he making a straw man argument when he says some people get so wrapped up in identity politics they don't really pay attention to other aspects of politics, or other issues, I should say. They don't pay attention to other issues. I mean, if you used a very, very, very broad definition of straw man argument, and you were really grasping at straws, maybe. But it's really hard to make that case in this video when Vaush has been living up to what Saagar is talking about, when he just is embodying that person that's just really, really wrapped up in identity politics and can't really focus on anything else. Now, is Saagar making a straw man argument when he's saying that the 1619 document or whatever says this or that? I personally cannot comment on that because I haven't read it or researched it. So I really don't know, and I really don't know if Saagar is or isn't.
Interesting. Well, he did also make the claim that people who wrote 1619 are pushing a narrative that race is the only issue that we should be looking at. Let's see. Let's look for only. We get 67 onlys. How about only issue? Oh!
I like how he says that like he just proved some point by hitting Control F and then searching a word and then doing it again with a pair of words. That doesn't really prove anything. I don't think, unless Saagar was quoting the work exactly, and I don't think that he was probably paraphrasing, if Saagar's right about it. You know, so I don't know what Vaush thinks that he's proven by doing this. I think he realizes he hasn't proven anything, because then he asked the chat to actually like read it and research it for him and then like get back to him. Like he knows that this doesn't mean or prove anything, this whole like searching a particular word. Come on, Vaush. But he still likes to be like, oh, I proved something, I think. No, I didn't. Whatever.
Well, hey, listen, I'm not going to scroll through this entire 100-page. Yep. Just to make sure I didn't misspell it. I'm not going to search through the entire thing. Irredeemable. Oh. Yeah, it's not there. I didn't misspell it. If somebody wants to go through the whole damn thing and find me a segment where they say either that America is irredeemably racist or B, that racism is the only issue America faces, I'd be very happy to hear that. I wonder if Krystal Ball... What does Krystal Ball call herself? Krystal Ball. American political pundit and journalist. It doesn't actually say progressive. That's nice. She's being more honest. I'm serious. Candace Owens really is the... Candace Owens. Krystal Ball really is the Candace Owens of the left. 100%. But instead of a race issue, it's a class issue. It's reeling in conservatism and far-right populism.
There goes Vaush using that phrase again. Far right-wing populism. Looks like Vaush has found a new favorite buzzword. And again, let me remind you that right-winged, left-wingedness and populism are not mutually exclusive, but those are two different stances. Right? That would be like if someone described themselves as a Christian Trekkie. That doesn't mean that they follow a denomination of Christianity based off of Star Trek. No, they're just simply saying they're a follower of Christianity and a big fan of Star Trek. And that's okay, because those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Another thing I'd like to point out is that the left-right political axis is more based off of, like, ideology, like beliefs, kind of like religion, just kind of, while populism is more of an opposition to something happening. It's an opposition to an establishment elite. Okay? Kind of like how secularism is an opposition to the entanglement of the church and the state.
By way of her association with a given group.
Racist nation, because that is one more event which is being talked about in the political zeitgeist by the cultural elite, which is not talking about their own power in the marketplace.
Notice this this vagueness, this non-specificity. Cultural elite. What does that mean to a conservative? More importantly, what does that mean to the audience? See, I don't know if this guy is a JQer. He literally worked under Tucker Carlson, so it's not exactly an impossibility. But what about the audience? Do you think the audience might be interpreting something other than that which this person actually believes?
I don't know, Vaush, but you are.
Do you think he would care if I pointed it out to him?
And if you look at what is the predominant control in your life in America, it is about capital. It's not about race. It's about class. But class disproportionately affects people.
It's about both.
Oh my God, Vaush, let the man fucking finish. He's literally about to say the words people of color because he's recognizing that it is about both. He just thinks it's primarily about class, but it's also about race. But you're just too busy. You're too busy trying to fucking straw man him and shove words in his mouth that you don't want to actually listen to what Saagar is trying to fucking say. You're like, it's about both. He thinks that. He agrees with that, but you don't fucking hear it. I don't understand, Vaush. I don't understand why you're fucking like this.
There is no harm in recognizing an intersectional approach. Like I said, black revolutionaries have been the vanguard of socialism in this country for 100 years. They have been the forefront. So how can would you do that to MLK? Would you go, or fucking Fred Hampton, like, hey dude, you're a socialist, you're a Maoist, that's super cool. Do you think you could drop the race stuff? I think your movement would really benefit from the inclusion of people who are uncomfortable with racial equality.
People of color in America. And so the way I look at it is that identity politics is so cynically grafted on by the billionaire and the corporate class. There's a reason they're all...
Remember, because corporations cynically profit from involving themselves in social movements, that means all forms of race and gender-based advocacy are cynical and hollow.
Straw man argument. Another straw man argument from Vaush.
Remember, it's literally a PragerU argument. Literally a Nazi argument.
At this point in the video, the first time I saw it, I thought to myself, is Vaush gonna be one of those people to go around and accuse people of being Nazis when they're not actually Nazis? Just go around and willy-nilly call everyone he doesn't like a Nazi. I've seen this entire video, and I can tell you that yes, Vaush is one of those types of people.
I hear this shit from Nazis. Oh yeah, dude. Nobody actually fucking cares about fucking trans, whatever, just corporations, just do with fucking Trans Pride Month, yeah. Nobody actually gives a fuck. I hear this shit from them all the goddamn time. And it's just being regurgitated ad verbatim. Krystal Ball, you okay over there? You want to step in?
Why would she step in? Unlike you, she's actually listening to what Saagar has to say, instead of, doing what you do and just making shit up and then saying that that's what he's saying.
All super woke. It's because they want it to be this way so that we don't talk about their power in our society.
Ah, yes. The trans and black communities. very well known for being subservient and complicit to corporate power. The groups that benefit most from this cynical corporate support are also the groups who are most disproportionately socialist. So they're obviously not succeeding in distracting people from class issues. Black people are significantly more disposed to socialism than white people in this country. Transgender people are significantly more disposed towards socialism than cisgender people in this country. But when corporations throw up trans and BLM flags, they aren't doing it to dissuade people from class consciousness. They're not that competent. They're doing it to make some money. They're doing it so they get featured in a Time article on woke corporations. They're doing it so they don't get a bunch of people on Twitter canceling them, okay? They're doing it because it makes sense for them to do it, not because it's part of some nefarious fucking scheme. One of the worst tendencies of left or right-leaning populism is the ascription of every social force to some sort of deliberate and malicious narrative.
I don't think every populist, or even most populists, ascribe every social force to some part of malicious narrative. I think you're just talking out of your ass some more.
The point, the fucking essence of Marxist analysis of class is that these biases can continue to manifest in the absence of maliciousness. That's the point. It wouldn't be a very good system if oppression could only be brought about by a cabal of hyper-sociopathic dipshits at the top. That would be an unsustainable system. You would only need one morally competent person at top to fix it. No, the real nefariousness of this system, of racism, of sexism, and of capitalism is that it can be propagated by well-meaning actors who aren't acting maliciously, who are only acting out of their own interests and out of the dogma that they have both been fed and feed to others. This is basic class analysis. This isn't intersectional wokeness. I could be reading this to you from Capital. So for people to sit here and go like, well, it's the nefarious scheme to divide people's class interests by introducing pro-trans people. No! That's not how it works! Fuck you! Read Marx. Read all theory, as I have.
And I think this was a very cynical, like, the way this all happened is kind of crazy because it started out in the sociology departments in the 1970s of all.
Started out in the sociology. Call me out, baby. Call me the fuck out, you fucking smooth-brained cunt. God, I would love to get one of you on my fucking show. I don't have a show, I have a stream. On my stream.
And do what exactly? It's gonna be harder to strawman them if they're actually physically there to defend themselves. You know that, right?
All of these crazy, these from the post
crazed
from the 60s era. They were, in these sociology departments, and they started.
This is the Frankfurt School argument.
I don't know. Is Saagar making the argument that you are referring to? Maybe you should let him finish his point to find out before you start jumping to conclusions. That would be a good idea.
This is literally postmodern neo-Marxists. These were socialists. This guy's literally regurgitating a Nazi conspiracy theory, the Frankfurt School of socialists that ended up infiltrating academia in our sociology and criminology departments. This is literally a Nazi argument, but the Frankfurt School people were socialists. They just applied class critique and critical theory to other forms of social ail. And they were based as fuck.
Cranking out all these absolutely crazy papers around, feminism. And
oh, find me one of those crazy papers. Find me one of them. All these crazy papers on yeah, very intellectual.
Come on, Vaush. Come on. Listen, as a whole, feminism is great, as a whole. But we all know that for whatever reason, feminism has attracted some nuts. And to be frank, I'm pretty sure anyone can write an essay, so I'm pretty sure some nutty feminists have written some nutty feminist essays before. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of great feminist essays that aren't nutty at all. But I'm pretty sure there's some nutty ones out there. Come on, Vaush. You'd have to be crazy not to think that there aren't crazy feminists and crazy feminist essays out there. Come on, it's feminism. Come on, we know. Yeah, as a whole, feminism, it's great. Women, equal rights, it's great. Of course, most people agree with that. But there are some feminists that take it a little too far. They go a little bit beyond that into weird woo cuckoo land. And again, that doesn't delegitimize feminism as a whole. It's just there's some crazy feminists out there. Like, what rock do you have to live under to not think that?
Identity politics, racial politics, all of that. And then what
What's
happened?
crazy about them? These are literally just papers on the existence of sexism and racism in this country.
Is that corporate America and other cultural elites, first of all, were being indoctrinated in the university system. They were going.
Corporate elites were being indoctrinated by Frankfurt School-inspired sociology classes. Oh, yeah? Yeah, fucking J.P. Morgan is being fielded by somebody who took fucking Soch in college? Are you fucking kidding me? This is a Nazi argument. This is literally just Nazism.
It's literally a Nazi argument. When I put words in his mouth and build a straw man argument and completely ignore things that he says and completely ignore the argument that he's making and just make up my own argument for him so I can attack him easier. It's literally Nazism.
This is just the JQ if you just ignore the Jewish bit.
Going to go work at places like McKinsey and others, and they brought their racial politics and their identity politics with them. But that there had to be a recognition from the top, from people like Goldman Sachs. If Goldman Sachs...
Holy shit! Of all the elites in this country, he chose Goldman. This is just the JQ! Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah, all of them are totally getting indoctrinated by fucking social studies courses. Jesus Christ. Please, God, mention... Oh, God. Oh, my God, please. Mention fucking, Kushner. I'm ready.
Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
If the pressure on them is to stop the way that they trade derivatives or to put a black person on their board while they continue to, do the derivatives trading, they're going to choose that every single time.
Right.
So they want to direct the conversation in that direction. It absolves them for the sins both, towards the economically disenfranchised in America, but it's also a very cynical tool, which is that
this is the most dumb, brainlet fucking argument. This would be like, this means that any time a corporation does something good, it's a sinister plot to distract people from the actual thing they should be focusing on, and also it's working.
Yet again, Vaush doesn't listen and misses the point. What Saagar is trying to say is that the establishment elite will signal boost identity politics and signal dampen issues involving the establishment elite in an effort to distract people from the issues involving the establishment elite. And it's like, I guess some people might just get involved with identity politics and then they'll just kind of call it a day and they won't worry about other issues. And I don't think that's always the case. Some people will, get involved and be concerned about, racism, race issues, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, etc., but they'll also be concerned about the establishment elite. But you, Vaush, through your words in this video, you prove Saagar's point, because you are apparently so wrapped up in identity politics that anything involving the establishment elite, you just really don't seem to care about, really. Not really, you don't really pay attention to it in this video. or at least to what other people are saying, because you're so wrapped up with identity politics. So it's kind of ironic you kind of prove his point.
There was no logical through line here. What if they just got more racially progressive because they realized that America was changing and they were adopting their power structures to, get less hate? And then, as America gets more actively socialist, they're going to fight against that specifically. It's not like this one-off thing. Back during the 1960s and 70s, that was the Black Panther Party. Do you think the radical socialists of the time were like seeing them get black people on the board of executives and going like, oh yeah, that's enough. That's good enough. There was no logical through line here, but the degree of open conspiracism is insane.
Why would the idea of a conspiracy be insane in of itself? Surely there are conspiracies. There have been conspiracies in the past, and there are definitely conspiracies going on now. Maybe a specific conspiracy theory can sound crazy and be just complete bullshit, but to not believe that there are any conspiracies is also crazy. I mean, especially now with what's going on. I mean, look at what happened to Epstein. Nobody thinks Epstein killed himself. It's a conspiracy. I mean, and look at Hillary's emails and tell me that there's no conspiracies. There's no conspiracies. Come on, man. There are definitely conspiracies.
Are you guys comfortable with me saying like Krystal Ball is a Nazbol or like a Nazi sympathizer?
No.
This is insane. I haven't watched this before. I watch everything with you guys for the first time.
Does it really count as watching the video for the first time if you don't actually pay attention to anything that's in the actual fucking video?
This is an unbelievable adherence to a Nazi conspiracy theory.
Why is it that you see all these corporations, tweeting out Black Lives Matter, Instagram blackout, all that stuff?
Because it makes them money. That's it. It's not that complicated. Read Marx. That's why corporations do shit.
How is it that you see Nike? Isn't this the great irony that Nike, went and did the whole Colin Kaepernick thing, the ad campaign, and they still got all their shit looted in this most recent thing?
How do I parse this one? So, first of all, oh man, there's so much for me to go over here. First of all, Nike already sold all of their shoes to the outlets that are selling Nike shoes, so they still make money. Most Nikes aren't sold at Nike stores. They're sold to other outlets, so they already got the sale. They already made the money from the sale. Second of all, doesn't this indicate your whole conspiracy theory doesn't work? That even if corporations do make cynical, soak-just, gestures, they're still not going to be, spared from, antagonism?
For the sake of argument, if there is a conspiracy, if people conspire to do something, and then what they conspire to do backfires or doesn't work the way they planned it to, that doesn't mean that there wasn't a conspiracy. By the way, just pointing that out.
Third of all, I'm pretty sure that typically speaking, rioters and looters don't really choose which corporations to loot based on what ad campaigns they ran a few years ago. Fourth of all, the saying they got all their shit looted from an anti-Black Lives Matter class reductionist conservative makes me feel like this motherfucker would use the phrase blacks are chimping out in 2016. I don't know. Listen, that's a little bit of inductive reasoning on my end.
What you did just there is not even close to any form of reason.
I'm pretty positive that's this guy's thought process right now. That's why he thinks this is so funny. Pretty sure his approach towards this is one motivated by let's say not a neutral and ambivalent perspective on black criminality.
Chicago, right? I mean, I think that's the perfect example of they try to cynically use identity politics in America, split people apart to protect their power. And if we
Except it doesn't work and you have no evidence of it working and everything you just said is baseless conspiracy. And even if it did work, even if they were doing that for that reason, that wouldn't mean we should abandon social justice causes. It would just mean we should stop listening to corporations, which nobody does anyway.
Nobody listens to corporations. Vaush, if nobody listened to corporations, then Bernie Sanders would have beaten Joe Biden in the 2020 primary. If the control that corporations have over the mainstream media didn't mean anything, then Bernie Sanders would have probably have been our president for the last 4 years.
And everyone makes fun of corporations for cynically promoting social justice, even people who are part of the groups that are being promoted there. Black people, go on black people Twitter. Do you think they're all like, whoa, dude, Apex Legends supporting Black Lives Matter. I guess they're totally okay now. Do you think that's what they're doing? Everyone makes fun of the corporations for this. It's just considered a symbolic gesture. No, there are not people who are being knocked off class wokeness by fucking adverts at the beginning of web pages.
start to understand that it's a lot more about class in America than it is about race.
It's about both!
Oh boy, here we go again. Saagar's saying, hey, it's more about class than it is about race, but it is about both. But before he can actually get that last little bit out, Vaush has to stop the video and then yell at his computer, it's about both, because he just can't fucking listen to someone else make a point. He has to just jump in and miss the fucking point that they're trying to make. I don't understand why he does this. Like, just sit back up for a little bit and listen and just hear him out. What is this accomplishing? What are you doing?
It's about both. It's not a competition.
Not saying that there is not racial problems in America, racism, that, you know, all of this, but that if you focus on these class issues, it's the best way to help people, to people who are disenfranchised, who are disproportionately people of color, but to help everybody. That's a much more, I just don't know how else we can live.
What if we did both? Because they aren't mutually exclusive and it doesn't hurt us to do both.
This has to be the lowest point for Vaush in the entire fucking video. Saagar just explained that we can do both, how we can do both, and that they are not mutually exclusive, but Vaush just doesn't fucking listen. I don't understand how someone can be so willfully ignorant of the argument that the other person is trying to make. And they just hear what they want to hear, instead of what's actually being said.
This is like talking to a fucking person who's not voting for Biden.
The first time I saw this video, after he said that, I had to pause the video, get up out of my chair, and walk away from my computer laughing. What a ridiculous thing to say, in the way that he says it. Like, it's like, oh, I can't believe that someone wouldn't vote for Joe Biden. I'm not voting for Joe Biden. Listen, if you want to vote for Joe Biden because, like most people voting for him, you just perceive him as the lesser of two evils, fine, whatever. And there are people out there that are voting for Trump because they perceive Trump as the lesser of two evils. But they're, if somebody just looks at two evils and is just not enthusiastic about either of them and stays home and doesn't vote for either of them, that's perfectly valid too. Like, come on. Like, oh, you're not voting for Joe Biden? It's not like we're faced with a clearly great choice and like a clearly bad choice. No, America has to deal with two bad choices. Like, you got Trump and Biden. You just either have to decide that you're not going to vote for shit. You're not going to vote for something that's just bad no matter what, or you're just going to have to bite the bullet and pick whichever one you perceive as to be the lesser of two evils.
wow, dude, you just want to vote for Biden, cuck yourself to the establishment? Why don't you do direct action? You can do both! Just do both! Both things! Just do both!
In a multifaceted nation like this, which is, economically heterogeneous, ethnically, people, so many people of different ethnicities, so many people of different religions, I am the son of Indian immigrants. I feel fully and completely.
Whoa, why are you id-pulling this conversation, you fucking hack? Aren't you a business owner, you piece of shit?
American. That's an amazing thing. That didn't just happen. It was the product of a result of very specific political.
Way to divide the movement. There were probably a lot of working class white Joe Rogan fans who are watching this, and now they've been informed that you're ethnic. They probably don't give a fuck much about your social message. I really think you should reconsider this, the extent to which you're willing to dilute your class message with vacuous idpol. What, your parents were Indian? What does that matter? Whatever experiences they had that were negative were probably more motivated by class than by race. Why is this relevant to this conversation at all? Are you trying to get woke points? Is this virtue signaling?
Political choice.
Just so you guys know, what my little meme just there was literally identical to what he's doing to the broader political conversation. Literally. It's literally the exact same thing.
It's literally not even close to being the exact same thing. All it is just you embarrassing yourself by showcasing how much you don't understand Saagar's argument.
I'm not parodying it. I'm just doing it the other way.
Choices that we made over time, and it's moving towards that we need to go towards, and that's what. But by doing so, what you've talked about many times about economic, not just distribution, but about the power, who has power in society, working class or not.
Yeah.
Which is the corporate America can use the identity politics in order to make sure the working class doesn't continue to have power.
And hey, you know what? Racist people can use class politics as a way of obfuscating racial identity. Except, whoa, they're doing it right now. On the Joe Rogan show. That's incredible. Wow. People obfuscating and suppressing a social movement to the benefit of another movement? I'm gonna fucking kill myself, dude. I can't believe this.
You can't believe it? You can't believe the bullshit that you just made up? Well, it's okay, Vaush. I don't believe the bullshit that you just made up either.
I have to get Krystal Ball on my fucking stream. I will do anything to roast this piece of shit. I know this fucking guy, I actually forget his name right now. I know this fucking guy would be like an easy walkover, but people don't simp for him. People simp for Ball. I need to go for Ball. I can't fucking believe how bad these people are.
It's funny how cocky he is. He just feels like if he debated Krystal or Saagar, he'd just blow them the fuck out with facts and logic or something. He just has no self-awareness. He has just no self-awareness at all. He just imagines himself as being like this master of political discussion, when in fact he just couldn't be more horrible at it.
And so you can't separate class and race, because it's not an accident, of course, that black and brown people are disproportionately the lower income. And
we finally stepping in after 10 minutes of conspiracism?
Poor and working class in society. I mean, I see it much more simply, sort of like what you were saying. It's virtuous. This is like a branding exercise, right?
No, never mind.
So, yeah.
And there's this whole idea, I always think it's hilarious on the right, of like Facebook and Twitter are progressive, or they're liberal companies, or Amazon's a liberal company. I'm like, what are you talking about? Amazon treats their workers like shit. They bust unions. Like, this is not a left company, right? But because they use those sort of branding tools and tweet out Black Lives Matter, which is no threat to them, and in fact, as you're pointing out, may very much benefit their bottom line.
Yeah, that's why they do it. No shit. They do it because it benefits their bottom line, not because it's part of some 19D chess plan to split people up and create a race war. If you have an issue with people believing Amazon is a progressive company based on their stupid little virtue signaling whatever, I criticize corporations for doing that all the time. But you realize getting rid of corporations for doing that, or getting rid of corporations doing that, or failing to acknowledge the social problems that corporations are making vague gestures at, isn't going to make those liberals on Facebook socialist. By the way, they had Andy Ngo on their show and they didn't push back at all. Holy fuck, is that true?
Right, so he stops watching the video there. He goes on to skim through some other videos of the Hill, and he doesn't really watch them, but he comes to the conclusion that Krystal Ball is either a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer, and that she is an enemy of his movement. Which is just and absolutely kind of ridiculous. I'm really not sure what to say or how to react to this, like, because, you know, you could feel one way, but then think another way, and the way Vaush makes me feel, like, when I watch this, like, it makes me feel, like, this particular video makes me feel like he's using identity politics to, like, bully people, to, like, push them down and make them look bad in an attempt to make himself look good. Like, he's just virtue signaling to feed his ego in a way. But that's not really a fair thing for me to say. Like, I shouldn't say that, because the truth is, and I put a disclaimer earlier, but the truth is I don't really know Vaush. I don't know how he thinks, or if this is just an off night, if he's not normally like this, if, you know, he was drunk in the video, or if he had just been up for a really long time, or some other explanation, or like this particular subject just isn't his strong suit. He gets way too worked up over it. You know, maybe if he's talked about something other than politics or identity politics, it would have been okay. You know, and that outside this, he's a nice guy. Like, I shouldn't make assumptions and jump to conclusions about him, because again, I don't know him, and I don't know what he's like outside this one video that I've seen. And it's not fair for me to make any judgment based off of this one video that I've seen. But I will say this, it's not okay to build a straw man argument and call someone a Nazi based off of things that you fabricated or things that you exaggerated based off of stuff the other person has said. It's just really toxic, and it's just not okay. It's just not a good way to conduct a discussion.